can do it for the kids. Do it for the kids. And they'll be happy that we did. Come on, let's do it for the kids.
Welcome to Shaw TV Special, the Comox Valley Child Development Association Then and Now. Sitting to my right is Mr. Edwin Grieve. Sitting to my left is Ms. Joanne Schroeder, the current Executive Director, and beside her is Pam Crowe, long-standing Chair of the Board and the Telethon Committee. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Welcome to our Shaw TV Special. Now, you are celebrating 40 years of the Telethon, 41 years as an organization. Pam, what is your earliest memory?
Well, my earliest memory, Mary Ruth, is really about the Telethon, because I had the opportunity through my work to be told about the Telethon that was at that point at the Courtney Junior, and someone said, oh, you should come down there and see what's happening, and so I did, and I walked in, and there was like a table there, and people were sort of like walking by, and it was like, well, what's the table for? Well, it was supposed to be the pledge table, but nobody was taking money. So I said, well, I could take money. So I could always take money. So I sat down and started taking money from people, and sort of wandered in and watched the entertainment. I didn't really know, I was really new to the Valley, so it was great for me to see what was going on.
What year was that?
That was about 1979, I think, 78, 79.
All right.
And the telethon was at the Courtney Junior. And
wow.
It was really interesting. It was really grassroots. But some of the people that were there at that telethon are still involved in our telethon, or remained involved for a long time. So yeah, I started taking money, and I guess to some degree I'm still taking money. So, and Edwin, you've been involved with the telethon for a long time, a lot of backstage stuff.
Yeah, my first telethon, though, was in '76, and it predates yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was actually held at the Comox Valley CableNet studios. And the studio was so new, it was basically fiberglass insulation between the studs and the wall, and you know, some lights and what have you, and they filmed it live to tape, and then they played the tape later during the telethon, before the rules are what they are today, I guess.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I remember very well that day I'd been working in construction, and a sheet of half-inch plywood fell on my head. So I don't know if that was actually helped me along the way, or whether it impeded me. So I'm lucky I have memory at all.
Now, Joanne, is your first memory the telethon, or is it actually working with the Child Development Association?
Yeah, working with the Child Development Association. So this telethon will actually only be my second telethon, having taken on the role of Executive Director just a little over a year ago. So, but I actually worked for the Child Development Association for about 3 years back in the mid-2000s. So I was very familiar with the staff and everything that went on program-wise at the telethon, and I was really happy. I went away and worked in Vancouver for about 10 years, and was really lucky to come back and join in again.
Now, when you first started working with the association in the early 2000s, what sort of do you remember standing out for you in the beginning with the staff and the board?
Well, I think it was just the commitment that everybody had to the work, like you, as a community of staff and board, just a real commitment to, you know, supporting children and families, a real respect for the children and families that came into the agency, and a lifelong really desire to support folks.
Now, speaking of commitment, how many years in are you now, Pam?
I knew you had to ask that question, didn't you? Well, I think I have been on the board since the early 80s. And so I don't know if that's commitment, or I should be committed. I'm not really sure, but...
Okay, so early 80s, so 90,
It's a lot.
30, so 30...
Some.
And
35-ish.
35-ish.
That'll be good, yeah. But you know, the term commitment really applies to sort of how the the Child Development Association itself got started, because it really was the commitment and the of parents of children with cerebral palsy that got this whole thing going back in 1974.
Oh, okay.
Parents that saw a need in Cumberland. And they started an association called the Comox Valley Cerebral Palsy and Neurological Association.
Okay.
Knowing that was going to be a mouthful. And the Pythian sisters were on board right at the beginning with the parents. And then Ken Osmond, who's still in town, was one of the original movers and shakers and directors.
Okay.
David Gibson, who just happens to be my husband. John Wilson, who's still in town.
Right.
All these people were the originators of the, and really had the foresight to get behind these parents and to really help us get off the mark. And then 2 years later, the name changed to the Comox Valley Child Development Association, because
Okay.
it really did, reflect better what the association was doing.
Yeah.
And,
CDA for
the
short.
CDA, and of
CDA.
course, all the services were out at the center in Cumberland, and Cumberland was just a huge supporter, and still is, of the association. But the association ran out of what was the old Cumberland Junior out there.
Okay.
Bronco Moncrief was a huge supporter and helped with funding, so that eventually the association was able to buy the building out there. And the Lions came on board with a bus program, so children could be taken out to the center for services.
Right.
And we ran, even back then, an integrated preschool program, which is really amazing, when you think about it. We've always been leaders, in services, but even then, it just grew from that grassroots and from the commitment that parents had, and then that professionals had to just help children that needed help in this community.
Now, you and Edwin both have been in a unique position over the last 3 decades to really have a view of the groundswell support. So when did you first notice that the community just grab a hold of this organization and start lifting up?
Well, Edwin, I think you've probably seen it at every telethon. I mean, I have had the opportunity to go through an old binder that Joanne found when we were moving some things, and just the words that, even back in 1978, 79, people talked about the community support of the first telethon, and how that was overwhelming, and they couldn't believe people came forward to donate. And the first telethon raised $25,000. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
It's a
40
lot of
years
money.
ago,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
lot of money.
And it continued. It grew slowly, but you read the words, the old green sheet. The newspaper. We have all the clippings. It's a great historical ride if you want to read some of this, and just the terminal. The overwhelming, and the community support is incredible, and we can't believe it. And we say that now, don't we? And Edwin, I'm sure you ran into that with getting entertainment.
Well, it was recognized early on that there was definitely a need in the community, and then this was filling that need. And we had a very narrow focus when we first started out, because it was all about the bus. You talk about the minibus. So we always used the telethon. The fundraising was for the bus, or to buy a new bus, or to get the old bus fixed, or what have you. So that was the focus. I remember that. And I didn't really start out behind the scenes until quite a bit later, and I think it was at the SID Williams Theatre by that time. I sang on it and played in my band and what have you, because as you know,
sing?
I'm a failed rock star. I was almost famous at least twice. But we had there was a need backstage, and I thought, well, I know about microphones and cables and all that stuff. I mean, working in a band. And it was Kenny Weber, I think, that first got me to come and help him out. So one thing led to another, and I've stuck with it. And then Jim and Ann Landry, back in about 97, 98, decided they were going to retire. And of course, it was very difficult because they were such a big piece of the telethon. And Ann phoned me up one day and said, I'd really feel much better if you take over the entertainment part. I said, honey, I've got another volunteer thing I'm doing.
Now, you didn't say that to Ann Landry. You said that to your
No, I
wife,
said
right?
that
Yeah,
to
yeah.
my wife. And by this time, she was starting to get used to it, I guess. And she said, whatever, fill your boots.
How romantic.
It's like they always tell you, anybody gets involved in volunteerism, it's always, oh, they just have one meeting a month. Oh, you don't take on much work. And next thing you know, you're the president, and you're,
Exactly.
having different meetings every week, and this and that and the other initiatives coming up, and you've got to whatever, right? So you kind of get eased into it. They kind of bait you into it.
I think one thing with the entertainment that we've really remained true to is to have local entertainment.
Yeah.
We've always had local entertainment, local
okay.
MCs at the
So
telethon.
Comox Valley based.
Comox Valley based. We have
Entertainers, okay.
such an array of
Well, that's true, we
incredible
do.
local entertainment, and there has been pressure on us. Oh, you need to get so and so from wherever, and we go like, why would we? We've got
so
Edwins
many good
and Kennys and Todd
Doug
Butlers
Coxes.
and Doug Cox and Helen Austins and
Sue Medley.
Sue
Medley,
Medleys.
yes.
There's a picture in that book of Sue Medley when she's about 16 or
Yeah.
17.
It's quite lovely.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's awesome.
So no, we've stuck with that, and it really fits with our theme of local people helping local children with
Right.
local entertainment in our local community theater, and I think that's a feeling that continues to resonate with the telethon. It really is a community coming together every year.
So many people don't realize we don't have to go very far afield to find good talent.
Oh,
That's true.
When we have, I think, 4 or 5 Juno Awards.
yeah.
We have 1 Golden Globe, 1 Emmy. We have 2 Grammys if you count Arcade Fire and Sarah Neufeld
Yeah,
from
that's
Black
right.
Creek, who plays violin and sings in Arcade Fire. I don't think we have an Oscar yet, but probably Barry Pepper's working on that.
That's right. To get him at the telethon.
Now, Joanne, in the role of executive director, you really have a bird's eye view on a day-to-day basis in the building. Walk us through that.
Well, it's probably a little bit different from one day to the next, but I'll try to give you a typical day. I'll think back a little bit about this morning and everything that was going on. So, from the early days of the Child Development Association, where there was the preschool and then some core early intervention services, so the speech services, occupational therapy, physio, the agency has just grown. And I'm hesitant to say the number of programs, because it's probably changed by the time it comes out of my mouth. But we still continue to have those core programs.
Okay.
All of those early intervention services. So as the day gets started, the therapists are all getting ready for their day. We have lots of young children that are coming to the center for service. And the therapists are more often than not going out into people's homes to provide services in the community or in the local park, because there's a thrust across all of the programs about getting kids included in the community, not segregating them for special support.
Now,
Go
how
ahead.
many children are we talking about that you guys provide services for?
Each year it's between 700 and 800 that come to the
Wow.
Child Development Association. It's a big place these days. I counted up the staff just the other day, and we're up to about 64 staff. So we've got a lot going on. We have a very large and growing autism program. So the incidence of autism among children is growing all of the time. And we have a center-based program where kids are able to come for intensive treatment on site. Monday mornings is always a special morning at the CDA because we have our grandparents raising grandchildren group. So this, again, is a population that's really growing. Grandparents, for a variety of reasons, are stepping up when their children are not able to care for their grandchildren. And there's a special need for support when you're a grandparent in that position, when maybe many of your friends are off in Mexico or playing golf, and you're doing the daily to and fro from the elementary school. So
Now, you mentioned the autism program. What are some of the other programs that you have?
we have a program that we call Infant Development, and that's really one of our earliest intervention programs. So it's designed for babies to age 3. who have developmental delays, and the infant development workers mostly go into people's homes and teach parents different ways to interact with their kids so that they're really nurturing their development. We have a couple of teenage programs, so again, for kids that probably have challenges around socializing with others, they're able to come to the center, go out and do community outings. That really gives them a chance to have a more typical teenage experience of hanging out with peers and doing fun stuff.
Now, there's a summer camp program that you have with the children. Tell us about that.
Camp Oasis. It is focused again for kids, teenagers primarily with autism. One of the really neat things about Camp Oasis is not just the children that come, but that we also have volunteers that come from around the world. Typically young people in their late teens, early 20s who are interested in learning about autism.
That's
so
incredible.
This year we had 2 kids from England, one from Greece, and 2 from the States that came and volunteered with us over the course of the camp.
Wow, that's amazing. How would you describe the CDA now compared to when you were here 15 years ago?
I mean, it's exponentially busier. I suppose it'd be fair to say I pay more attention now than I did then because my job was, I didn't have to think about it all in those days, and I do now. But it's a lot busier. There's a lot more people coming and going every day. You know, we have more sort of parent drop-in type programs, so the building is really filled with people. And again, particularly the Autism Program, I would say, has contributed to a lot of that growth, both in terms of the clients and in terms of the numbers of staff that we have.
You know, originally our mandate was only for children 0 to 6. So we were talking about this the other day. Originally we said we're now 0 to 30, and now we have our grandparents program. I think we could say we're 0 to 80. But I can remember very vividly being at a board meeting in, actually when we were out at the center in Cumberland and being told quite emphatically, you don't have to worry about the children after 5 years old. We'll take care of them. This was from the school district. Now we have a wonderful relationship with the school district, and one of the reasons why we have these older programs with children, young adults, and up to 30 is because of, again, coming back to that word commitment, the commitment that the association has had to not or to continue to serve these kids who we've had, some of them since they were babies. And it's really exciting, but it's also put a lot of pressure on the finances of the association. This grandparents program that we started, it's not because we got a lot of money from anybody to run that program. It's just the commitment from the board, supported by the community, to extend ourselves to another program because the need is there, and so we've taken it on, and we can only do that with the support and commitment of the community.
Well, and one of the great things about your growing partnership with the school district is you also have a growing profile in the province. Last year you were chosen one of 12 early childhood centers, and now you have a website of resources, the Valley Child. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah, we were super excited to be designated as one of the provincial early years centers. And the key thing for that project is to make sure that people are aware of all of the wonderful services, not only at the Child Development Association, but across the community in terms of giving support to families when their children are in those early years. So our website, it's valleychild.ca. It's absolutely fantastic. If you have children under 6, it'll tell you in terms of resources, events, ideas, parenting tips, all kinds of things that will provide support to parents with young children.
Serving 800 children plus, and you talked about how busy the building is. Now, Pam, as the chair of the board, has that presented the board with a challenge around space and looking forward?
It's a continuous challenge to sort of weigh what our footprint now, what we maybe like to dream of having, and what financially we know we're able to have, and what the community will support. We're very blessed to have the central location that we have. We're indebted to the City of Courtenay for what it does for us tax exemption-wise. But yeah, we're bursting at the seams. I think the assumption is we should burst at the seams and rather than sort of build some large
Right.
fancy building, but at some point we are going to burst out of there.
So bursting
So
at the
yes,
seams,
bursting at the
that's
seams.
why, when we're bursting at the seams, that's why the telethon plays such an integral role in the year-to-year support of the Child Development Association.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the telethon over the years has always been just a necessary fundraiser so that we can continue to do back 40 years ago. If you read some of the books, it's, we need this for special toys and equipment.
Which are all very expensive,
And
course.
specialized. It's the same thing now. We need the telethon to continue our services. It's not something we do. It is fun, don't get me wrong, but we need it.
Right.
It's vital for our existence as we know it and as the families in the valley have come to know it.
Right.
It's vital.
Now the telethon.
Putting on my other hat just for a second, because I hate to say it, but I'm an elected official.
Okay, then
We're
don't.
not
Recovering
talking
elected,
politics
I'm
today.
But it always amazes me how with charitable nonprofit groups all doing such great work, and we know them all out there. They're working tirelessly. I'm always worried about burnout because there's always so many volunteers that give so much, and in the end, they have to have somebody come and fill the vacuum when they leave. But it always amazes me how you can take a need and you see a funding program out there, and you have to kind of massage your program to make it look like it fits the criteria to get those few bucks, So, hats off to you guys, because I understand what it takes to go through the funding hoops.
And I must say, we've been blessed with great support provincially.
Yep.
So we're very lucky that way. But, I say that, but we've also had great executive directors who have worked really hard to make sure that our relationships within the community, provincially, municipally, are good and for the
Right.
benefit. We're here for only one reason, and that's
Right.
to do the work that is needed to help children with special needs in this valley. And
Okay.
so that's what we're working for, and that's what we're there for.
So 41 years, and the
41
telethon is in its 40th. This is going to be the 40th telethon.
Woo.
Sunday, November 1st. And
Yep.
you've got a lineup that is gold stars right across the board.
Yeah, like I say, you don't have to go very far afield. About 60 acts so far, and there's about another half a dozen waiting in the wings.
And we're cutting back this year.
We're trying to do the best job and
is
saying,
so hard.
you aren't really doing us a favor by singing that third song. You're just sort of cutting everybody's time. I would like to say, though, and I think I could be backed up by my cohorts here, on the fact that we've been through a few cable companies over the years, and we've had stellar support from all of them.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Shaw's the last on quite a long list of them, but we have to give the credit where it's due, that we get great support from our local TV provider.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can't have a telethon.
You can't have a telethon if you don't have
gonna be
You
on
don't have
TV.
someone behind those TV
Well,
cameras.
the telethon is going to be on Sunday, November 1st, and it's going to starts at noon, right? Noon,
absolutely.
live on Channel 4, and it's also going to be streamed live. My Tech Guys is arranging the streaming. And you can come down to the Sid Williams Theater starting at noon, and it's all the way till 8 o'clock, and there's all kinds of local entertainment. There's kids groups, there's professional acts like Doug Cox. You've got the Brownies presenting again, and local dancers, and some of the preschool kids come on and
Yeah,
sing a
there's
song
somebody
too,
to be
right?
there singing. I think there's a new entry from the Military Wives Choir this year.
Just in
Excellent.
time is
Yeah,
going to
just-
be there.
oh,
They
yes.
will-
We've got
Oh,
door
love them.
prizes, bike draw,
Raffles.
Silent
raffle
auction.
baskets, silent auction.
Hockey
raffle.
tickets.
You're getting old
When?
when it's the grandchildren of the
Yes.
Brownies that were on the first year that are coming on this year.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Pam, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming on today and sharing with us the history, 41 years of history, unbelievable. and Joanne, the current executive director, and I'm sure you've got a lot of challenges coming up, so all the best on that.
Thank you.
And Edwin, I know you've got a stellar lineup. We can't wait to see it, and I understand you have a song you're going to end us with. So thank you so much for joining Shaw TV's special CDA Then and Now. Take it away, Edwin.
The Telethon song.
Hey.
Come join right in. Comox Valley is Telethon time again. And so I'm asking you, show all the world what we can do. And we can do